So this month we have been about celebrating Black history, but we have also been about celebrating those who are writing a new future. And this morning is part of that. We started on this first Sunday celebrating more authors joining you, Reverend Glenn. I think the first book I ever read of yours was The A-Game. Then we had Rod come along with his book, and it's interesting, we've had people show up. Last Sunday, we had a visitor who hasn't been with us for a long time, and she came up and said, I just love the service. She's here this morning. And she said, I have been writing a book that needs to be written. I said, well, this is a familiar conversation we have with people here. Lots of books being written, but we don't necessarily have all the books yet. She said, I've been at work writing a book since 2009. I said, what's the book about? She said, I don't want to scoop it because we don't want to have anybody else write this book before she's done with hers, right? But it's a book for women. Meditations and a spiritual guide for those who have been through the valley, through the hardest of times. Will you stand? Welcome back this Sunday. We can't wait to see your book. So, just like that story, and just like Rod's, we have somebody in our community who's been at writing a book, right, Cynthia? He's been at the business of writing this book. And I think Reverend Glenn jumped in his sandbox so many times. Paul, when are we going to see this book? And he was so excited at the turn of the year to be able to share with all of us that first edition of Ask Me Between the Stars. Author Paul T. Garrison, our very own. Paul, will you join me up here? Let's give it up for Paul, the author. They haven't even read your book yet, and they're already on their feet. They haven't heard you speak yet, and they're already applauding. That's the truth. So, Paul, I have to make sure you sign this today. So, when I was reading about you and this book, I learned that this is, now I don't exactly know how the counting works. You'll have to explain that to me. But there was a first book that was published, book number 1. And then quickly in the introduction of Ask Me Between the Stars, it introduces this as the third book. So we're going to talk about the third book here first. Tell us about this project, this experience that you have shared and put into this publication, book number 3.
Good morning, everyone. The writings of book 3 started years ago, right after I got out of the military. And I wrote for comfort. I wrote for peace within myself. I didn't write for anyone in particular. But what happened, I lost someone very dear to me. And it sunk me into a hole, a very deep hole. And for a year, I wasn't able to concentrate. I wasn't able to deal with other people. I went on a jazz cruise with thousands of people, and I just couldn't click. I had a horrible time. So I came back, and I said, I've got to do something with myself. And the writings, I would write on bar napkins, bar flyers, restaurant napkins, any piece of paper I could find, I would jot it down. I didn't realize that I had more than 300 pieces of paper. So to satisfy myself, I started dumping out my trunk, my briefcases, and I started putting them into the computer. Well, after I got to about 90 or so, I said, why don't I just put a book together? And that's why this book was formed.
There's some sweet writings in here. It is a glimpse into your spirit, into your soul, into your walk. It certainly is. I know at the end of our service, you're going to have a table out there, and I'm going to be able to get my book signed. And you brought copies today, I hope.
Yes, sir. I did.
You did, all right. We're all learning in this book publication business. It's not always easy to get the books from the publisher, but we managed to. So when you think about your journey, your spiritual journey, it's been wide and deep. When you stand here today with your friends, your wife, your community that supports you, what can you share with everybody who is here who is right now going through a dark time? What's your advice to them? What's your words for them today?
Hang in there. I realized during my dark time, I decided to come to Renaissance Uni, thanks to Cynthia. Cynthia picked me up, okay, knowing I was not a person to really be around very much. But she dealt with me, and she brought me to Renaissance Unity. Once I got here, I enrolled into a grief counseling program. The lady has retired.
Sadie Hess.
Yes. And I realized no matter how bad I felt, there were people in that session who really felt worse than I do. The person that's divorced and the person still walking around that they truly love. There were so many heartaches that came out of that meeting. I began to say, whoa, I'm not the worst. And that really what perked me up. And with Cynthia's help, and now with Ava, that's who's going to help me today with the books, and people like you, Renaissance Uni has been a beautiful blessing to me, and that's part of what has happened.
So I'm going to ask you to share one of these that was special to me. So I'm going to hand it to you in a minute. I think you'll find your own special one when you have a chance to get your book. You hit something that's been that's been moving within our community, and I don't even know that you know this when you just shared this story. So at the end of last year, as a community, under the support of Reverend Tracy and Reverend Linda Purrier, we started a concerted effort to reach out to those who are in the deepest and darkest places of grief. We stood with them, Tracy and Linda, on Wednesday nights as we moved through the holiday season. And we are in the midst of a book study that's taking place online with them as well. In April, we're going to have an opportunity for our community to focus on and to open the door towards healing through grief. Your demonstration, your willingness to share your journey, we don't even have to look at the faces out here, but we know, just like you and I know we're looking at each other right now, that there are people in this space who are tuned in who need what is being offered and need this community and to be here for each other. And I think it's interesting, when you talk about how you connected around grief, that you found that there were others on the journey towards healing and that they were facing bigger mountains. But the truth of it is we're facing our own mountain. There is no comparison when it comes to grief. There isn't. But there is the need to be able to move through it. So your testament and your willingness to share this book here, you've been such a powerful gift to Renaissance Unity. And Cynthia, we owe it to you. So we love you. Thank you so much for bringing him and having him here and supporting him on this journey, because none of us get to this spot without somebody like you making sure we get there. So I found this one really powerful. It's called Spiritual Images. So I'm going to give you the book and the microphone, and if you wouldn't, after the service, at the table out there, Paul will be there with his books. I think they're $10, is that right? Yes, sir. $10, and he'll sign your book for you, and you can support his manifestation, his realization of his mastermind request coming true. Here you go.
I guess I should mention my deep grief started when I lost a wife of 41 years and 7 months. That's what started my downfall. Spiritual images. I'll try without my goggles. This will be horrible. I don't know what excites my joy. I cannot imagine what spirits lift me or console me. I only know I am excited through my imagination, which arouse my desire in chase of spirit. I only know I don't know where the Spirit will lead me, hopefully, departing the galaxy, earthly bound. Perhaps now I will find a new manhood of joy and happiness. Solitude by spiritual love. Thank you, sir.
We love you.
I love you too, sir.
Thanks, Daisy.